Hello, this is the Orc Tactical Team. I'm Malorian, and what we're going to be talking about today is giants, specifically in Orcs and Goblins. So, going into 8th, a lot of the giants got quite a bit worse. Some of the reasons for this, thanks to, of course, as usual, the step up and the supporting attacks. That means a lot more attacks at your giant, and when all you really have going for you is having lots of wounds, it's not too hard for just core units with a lot of attacks to do these wounds to this toughness 5, no armor giant. And as well, at the same time, the shooting got a lot more powerful, where you're going to see a lot more shooting thanks to, shooting into ranks and volley fire. Also, your war machines got more accurate. Your cannons don't need to guess anymore. Cannons are doing D6 instead of D3 for non-Empire ones. So it's true line of sight, so they can't hide behind things anymore. So really, your giants that had weren't exactly the best in 7th, but at least they were good enough that they can make a lot of lists. A lot of people now in 8th are just saying, why'd I even bother to ever take giants in my list? They're just useless. But a lot of people want to try and find a way. And there is a way that you can use them if you really like them, that you can try and get the most from them. So the first thing is their psychology. So of course, terror and fear has changed. And the way that it is now is that you only care about terror when they're charging you. They're taking these fear tests every turn. But the problem is that now you have your general's leadership, you get to re-roll the test for your BSB, so a lot of times it's not really even going to have an effect, and that's if you're even fighting an army that even has to take tests. Of course, if you're against vampire counts or demons, they're not going to care about it anyway. So the first thing you want to do to try and get around this is go around the flanks. So try and get outside the general's bubble, get on the outside, and force them to take some tests on their own leadership rather than their generals. So that way, it could just be that you charge them and you can just run them right off the board from the way that these charges are. So that's the first thing you want to try. And another thing is, by having these guys on the flanks, it's kind of more of a psychological, because your opponents will see them and go, well, they're not really threatening the center of my line, so their priority level drops down enough that you might not see any shooting against them. So that's one thing. For some survivability, as I said, you don't have the true line of sight anymore. You do have true line of sight anymore, so you can't exactly be hiding behind woods or anything like that. However, there is one interesting rule that I thought was really interesting, obviously, that when you get shot at, you can't claim the cover from obstacles. However, if a cannonball hits an obstacle, it kind of just destroys the obstacle and then disappears. So when you're placing terrain, if you have obstacles, try and place them around the outside, and this can be things that your giant can run and try and hide behind. And of course, for them, they could always land a cannonball right on you, and you can't stop that. However, now they can't try and do it before you and bounce into you, because it'll hit that obstacle and just stop. So that helps you there. The next thing is that, of course, you want to try and use him more as a support unit, as opposed to just something that's going to be taking on units all by himself. So run him on the flank with one of your blocks. When you rank up, that'll mean usually that he's on the edge, so there's fewer models that can actually fight him, and then that way he can just be a unit that really is giving supporting attacks and some extra punch to your block. And at least, compared to something like a chariot where it's a one-time hit, at least he's giving it continuously. So when you think of it that way, he has a high price tag compared to a chariot, but because he keeps on pumping that out, it can be a lot more worthwhile. So that's a way to protect him a bit. In the center, now, as I said, he's going to be a little bit less effective in the center. He's going to be a high priority, so things are going to shoot at him. The best of the best is going to be attacking him, so he's probably going to have some lord or characters cutting him to pieces. But you still can use him for his unbreakable ability. So he's not really unbreakable. He is stubborn, toughness 10, but when you have that around your BSB, that means that if he loses combat, there's almost no chance he's going to be running away. So what we can do is use this to try and manipulate your opponent's units. So, run them up, turn him to the side so that when the opponent charges him, of course, if they charge, that means they can't shoot him, and there shouldn't, usually, unless you're a really killy unit, you know, you're fighting some corn warriors with great weapons, they shouldn't usually kill him in one round of combat. He'll pass his stubborn 10 test, and then you can flank him. And what that'll allow you to do is hopefully beat him, that unit, good enough that they won't be able to reform, and from that point on you can just grind this down. So this would be really good for something that's a killy unit, like say they have 8 Minotaurs, right? 4 wide, and again, they might be able to kill the giant, but if they don't, then they're going to be held up, and they'll kill that giant in later turns, but then those Minotaurs are going to be screwed because they've been hit on the flank, and what's on the flank is going to keep beating them until they're either wiped out or ran down. So it's a risky move. Of course, if he ever dies, that's going to be panic text all around, and that's never good for Orcs and Goblins. So you'll have to make sure that when you set that up, you're going to be 6 inches away. So really watch that with your pre-measuring so that you'll be controlling those leadership tests. But I mean, at this point, a lot of us have these giants. They're great models. We love them. So you got to find some way to get the most from them. Another thing that can be fun is if you're ever doing a bigger game, you know, you just take 4 of them and just try and ram them up and try and do as much damage as you can. But tactically speaking, the good old giant is probably best just on the flank. That's your best reliable spot. Just go on the flank, try and hope that that psychology is going to work for you. You know, they might fail that fear test so that they're only hitting you on 5s. And that's the best you got. So anyway, that's the Orc and Goblin giant. Still has some uses, just very limited. And next time we're going to be switching over to a different army. I've had quite a bit of questions of Warriors of Chaos, and in specific the Tzinch god marked warriors. So we're going to be talking a little bit of those Tzinch warriors next time. So anyway, we'll see you then. Bye.